Hello, welcome to part 4 of this composing session of this inspirational cue. This is where we left off last time after part 3, where I had made the revisions that the library that wanted it sent to me. I made those revisions in the last video, sent it back to them, and good news, they wanted it and signed it. Now, there is the final part to submitting your cue to a library. Once they've liked it, you've signed it, what they will want you to do is create what are called alts or stems. And they are basically, let me find it, things like this. So actually, this library has actually only asked for stems. So a stem is a stereo mix is what it stands for. And ideally what they would like is the separate parts, like you can see there, bass, brass, woodwinds, drum kits, guitars, whatever it is. They want them in separate files of all the exact same length as the original cue, but separated out. So technically they could put them together in their own way to create a version of your cue. This is particularly helpful for an editor if there is some dialogue going on in the scene that they want to use your cue in, and in this case maybe the brass is just getting in the way. What they would be able to do is put a variation of the other parts together and take out the brass, or not add the brass. Another way you may get revisions is alternate versions. And what you would do for that, instead of separating the separate sections, what you are doing is taking the whole piece and you remove certain parts so that only some remain. So you might create what is called a narrative alt version. That would mean your whole cue, but anything that you think is the melody, you mute, and then you export the whole track. If you're doing it that way, the music editors can have both cues next to each other and they can crossfade between one and the other. So your narrative, for example, wouldn't have the brass if that was the featured melody in it, but they would both be playing at the same time on their timeline that they're working with, and they just crossfade from one to the other and back again when they want the brass to come back in. We're not doing alts for this. I've only been asked to do stems, so stereo mixes, and I find this quite therapeutic in some ways. It also, over time, you learn that while you are composing your tracks, you end up actually sort of thinking of this in advance because you know you'll have to do it later. But it is quite good fun. Basically, all I'm doing is tidying up. I'm going to be tidying up this display, color coding it, putting icons in, and then separately bouncing out exactly the same length. So it will be this cycle range, which was the original bounce range, even if there's nothing playing. So, for example, this bass part, for example, only comes in bar 19. I would still bounce it out from the beginning, because what you need is exactly the same length stems, because then your music editor could just line all the stems up and they will be matched up. So first thing to do is group things together in the order that you want to do them. Okay, let's have a look. So the first thing I'm spotting is actually these strings we started with weren't used. Get rid of them. Don't need them. It's taking up space. Let's just check for any other tracks that aren't used. Polka accordion never got used. It's possibly going to be French themed, but decided not to in the end. I say French themed. It was possibly going to be used for the Olympics, but not guaranteed. So didn't want to go too heavy into that. Okay, so what I'm now looking for is similar instruments. Now, I've got violins, there, viola, and there's a synth pad there. That's high strings. That's strings as well. Low strings. Bass. Now, okay. So brass, 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 brass. That I haven't labelled. But it is Colossus brass longs. Woods longs, and got the flutes there as well. They should go next to the woodwinds, because we'll do those as one. Vocalize is our singers. Now, which one was this? Mosaic bass. That was the mellow. This the fifths. That was lower the fifths. This one was it. Now I'm going to keep putting these pads to the bottom, I think. Now we've got orchestral. So percussion wise, cymbals, timps, harps. I'm not sure those were both, one of these is reverses. That's whooshes. That's whooshes and reverses, but I think you will find I've only used reverses. Let's check. Yep. And only two of them. So what I will probably do is we will have whooshes and reverses. In the same section. We've got this epic percussion. Yeah, I will probably leave those together. Now, and the synth pads only come in here. So it's sometimes useful to think about, is that worth grouping with the high strings? Because they are providing the same job. Yeah. Now these parts, is it worth putting the flautando in as well? Because then I'm just thinking the violas probably group well with the basses and cello. I'm noticing a missing note now. Yes, because it was covered by the brass. So that makes sense. I think we are in pretty good shape there. Now, instrument 1 was just piano or sketching. Right. Okay, so these are all what I'm going to group together as the high strings. So let's give them a violin. These are going to be our low strings. I'm going to give them a cello shape. Brass, brass, brass. Do I want high brass and low brass? I don't think so. What I do think is we will stick them all together. The brass icon. These are our woodwinds. So let's give them a clarinet. Those are vocals. Let's give them a microphone. Those are our synth basses. So I like that one for synth bass. Cymbals, I think I will do separately. Timpani can go with the epic percussion. That is tuned percussion. I know a harp isn't actually a drum. Reverses and whooshes. Let's give them a special effects sound. Look. And epic percussion. What should we use for that? It's a bit confusing in case there was ever video. Let's use Spoilt for Choice. The thing is, you want to pick something that makes sense when you come back to it. I'm going to go with sticks, but in fact I might go with those which look more like orchestral beaters. Okay, so am I happy with those as stereo mixes is the question. We have got a bunch of high strings which I'm hiding the synth pads in. Well, not hiding, it's just they go with it. Then we've got our low strings. Then we've got our brass. Let's go for yellow for brass. Then we've got woods. Vocals. Our synth line. Cymbals separately. Red. Tuned percussion. Effects. I'm going to need two similar colours here, I think, to make it easy. Yeah. Stereo out. One of the last steps, make sure everything's labelled. So that is leader 1 spiccato. This is not, this is B1, the whole violin 1 section. And that is the violin 2 section. B2 lead. Let's just pop the leaders next to each other, and the sections only come in at the end. That makes sense as well. I strings, pads, O. Altando, I said, was going to stay with I strings. There we go. Viola spiccato, legato lows, bass legato, medium hairpins, horns long, low brass. I'm not sure if they were all low brass actually. That's Abbey Road 1 trumpets. That is brass longs. That is horns long. Brilliant. Woods longs, hundreds flutes. This was vocalized in A major. This was in F sharp major. We've checked those. We know that's cymbals, harps, pushes, reverses. You see, timpani is technically tuned percussion, but I think it adds more to the epic bit. Yeah. Go. Now the fun bit. Make all your tracks fit together. So they fit on the screen, sort of. And then what you do is the fun tidying up bit, because you can name the regions by the tracks. They've all got the proper name. And color regions by tracks, and then everything looks nice and pretty. I like that. That's quite satisfying last little step to do. And I think we are good to go. Look, the mix is all pretty now as well. Oh, sometimes it makes me wish I just did that as I went along. I find it hard to compose and think about all that at the same time. To some extent, it's actually quite nice at the end to just go through and go, finished. Yeah. Okay, now we turn on the cycle range, make sure it was the same as set for the whole track, and we are going to bounce these out at 24-bit 48K. The library retitled it Getting That Winning Feeling, so fair enough. And what I'm going to do in brackets is say what the stereo mix is. Time for Diet Coke. Talk amongst yourselves while the fun bits happen. But this is actually the productive bit. You know, we are actually producing final parts now. And you just go through like this. Once it's set up, we go. So as long as you've prepped everything in advance, that's really helpful. He says as logic goes into meltdown. I might have done that while it was still thinking. Have we got? Yep, I've broken it. Clicked too early, and I'm trying to run OBS at the same time. That might be the issue. That's it. All I'm going to do is now restart Logic, load up the session again. But basically everything's done. I'm going to solo out each of those parts, give them their name. I will then have a bunch of files nicely labeled to send off to the library, and those stereo mixes can be put together and they will roughly create the end version. It won't be quite the same because they are all going through the mastering plugin separately. So there would be a build up. It would sound different if you tried to pop all these on top of each other. There would be extra effects going on. But it's great. They can choose to mix and match. That's the entire point. Have you liked and subscribed? Thank you for watching to the end. That's really satisfying to get that all finished, squared away, and then I just save that, back it up, archive it, just in case one day they say, oh, we like that, but can you just do this to it? Yeah, that's really good fun. I enjoyed working on that track, and it's signed to a library, so I will keep you updated on if it finds its way onto some TV or film show somewhere. Always exciting to see that when that happens. It tends not to be immediately. and I'm talking like a year, 6 months, something like that. Okay, see you next time. Bye for now.